Thank you. Thank you, folks. Well, we really appreciate you coming out on this beautiful day to the town of Frisco. We thank the museum for putting this on and inviting us out. We've been doing this for a handful of years. We absolutely enjoy speaking to you guys and educating you about what we do here in Colorado and what we call fun. So it's a pretty extreme sport. First, my name is Brad Wann. I've been in the sport since 2009. I've been involved with equine my entire life. My father invented equine chiropractic, working on the spinal cord of horses in 1964. So we have had our hands on some really hurt, injured animals and brought them back to work and gave them a job and gave them purpose. So my passion is to do that. So Redonkulous Ranch, which we have here, that is our passion as well. We take, instead of horses, we do it now with donkeys. And that's all we rescue is donkeys, and we give them purpose. So my wife is the president of Redonkulous Ranch. She's somewhere around here, Amber Wann. And there she is, hiding behind the post here. So we had a really great opportunity to find donkeys that needed a second chance and rehabilitate them, or to just give them a job so they're not sitting in a pasture doing nothing. And those are the happiest, most productive donkeys you'll ever find. So, but I did get started in pack burro racing in 2009. My wife started in 2008. It's my in-laws, Blair and Claudia Smith's fault that I'm standing before you today. They talked my wife into doing a burro race. They trained a couple of their beautiful little mini donkeys to go run. And they started with some of the smaller races and worked their way up to the bigger races. And we have a saying in this sport: once you do it, or once you see it, it's hard to forget. Once you do it, it's hard to walk away. And it is. Less than 1,000 people have ever been a pack burro racer. We've been around since 1949. We are in our 76th year of hauling ass over the pass. Burro racing is instrumental in preserving the mining towns here in beautiful Colorado. In 2012, we took pack burro racing to the Capitol, and we made it the state sport of Colorado. So pack burro racing is called the Colorado Summer Heritage Sport. And it is forever engraved with snowboarding and skiing, which is the winter sport. We're the summer sport. So that was fun to get past. A handful of us, bull goose loony athletes, went up to the Capitol, and we pretty much got them to agree on something. It was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. So in 1951, we had this lady who decided she wanted to run donkeys. Now, does anyone here know anything about marathons and when the first woman ever to run a marathon? Does anybody have any history in that? In
late 70s, or early 70s, late 60s.
1967, a lady by the name of Mrs. Schwartz, she ran the Boston. She was tackled. They were telling there was all kind of health reasons why women couldn't run marathons, and all this medical stuff came out, and they can't, she's like, we can run marathons. So she just did it. Burro racing has had women since 1951. Edna Miller, the rule was you had to have facial hair. So being the school teacher she is, she just cut some locks off her granddaughter's hair, glued them on her face, and showed up in overalls with the rest of the men. They looked over and go, oh, it's just Edna. And her burro pill went over the top of Mosquito Pass. That race that year was between Fairplay and Leadville. And so she went to 13,185 feet. So we have had women running marathon distances since 1951. So when they tell you that the Boston was the first one at sea level to have a female run, it's not true. It happened right here in the beautiful state of Colorado. So burro racing, Edna was able to bring lots of women into the sport over her time. She ran for about 14 straight years, and she wrote in the New York Times. She wrote a book. I think she has a children's book out there. And so she really did some great stuff for our sport. Women in our sport have been really great because they were able to break records, set their own in a sport that's relatively new and unheard of. We have women in the Hall of Fame and in the Running Hall of Fame, which is really, really cool. And we're able to educate people on how awesome it is that a man and a woman can line up on a starting line and there's no gender because it's a burro race. So you're only as fast as your ass. It's what you got to know in this sport. So whether you have a big donkey, a medium donkey, or a little donkey, and we're going to go over the sizes in a little bit, it doesn't matter. It's about the heart. It's about the ability to want to finish and making the burro think it's their idea. So it doesn't matter if you're a big strapping man, you will get run down by a woman and they will pass you, and it will humble you very quickly because they are faster than us, because they can negotiate way better than us men. And that's what burro racing is. It's a negotiating skill. But anyway, so we run in mountain towns here since 1949. The history of burro racing is that the town was dying and they needed some sort of revenue to bring people to town in beautiful Leadville and Fairplay, both on either side of the Mosquito Pass. So the towns got together and said, let's have a burro race. And they put it together, and the tradition for the town was that we needed to create revenue, so they'll bring in Tent City and they'll start selling vendor stuff and bringing people to town. Now they explode the town of Fairplay. I think the population is about 900, and they hit somewhere over the 20 to 30,000 mark over the weekend for burro days. So the World Championship Fairplay. But we run distances between 5 miles and up to 29 miles. And a lot of people go, man, that's a lot for a horse to do 29 miles. Well, donkeys are an equine, and they are a little different. They're second to camels in needing water, where a horse has to have water all the time. So they absolutely have to be hydrated, where a donkey may do 30 miles and still not want water. They can travel up to 60 miles a day in the wild, and these donkeys are truly hardy, and they're absolutely amazing critters. You know, if you take a look at some of these burros, and we'll talk about the donkey and we'll get back to some of the burro racing history, you'll see a cross on their back. So you see the cross over his front shoulder. So right there, that goes down the front shoulder. So the story behind the donkey cross, and we're going to talk about why they're the beast of burden, is the donkey carried Jesus into town. And when they saw Jesus on the cross, they felt ashamed. So the burro turns his back on the cross. And God cast the shadow of the cross on the burro's back, making them the beast of burden. So that is the historical reason why all donkeys have a cross. So, but these burros are incredibly hardy. They can eat an aspen tree to a nub. We don't buy this year's hay. We're looking for last year's hay because they can't eat too much protein. They're desert animals, but they can live on almost all continents. And these donkeys are pretty much the third world tractor of all nations. On the backs of burros, which is a real book here in Colorado, this state of Colorado was built, and most states were built on the backs of burros. And so without the donkey, we wouldn't have the infrastructures that we have, the railroads, the highways, the irrigation, the dams, all the different things we have were built off the backs of burros. And I was watching like a Discovery Channel history thing, and it was talking about how the burro was the original information highway, how the Egyptians would figure out how to do water irrigation, put the plans on the backs of the burros, and they would send them off to the next village. So pretty amazing that these animals have touched all our souls and hearts throughout all this time. These donkeys have been used for probably the last 3,500 years. And so it's pretty amazing to make sure before the day is over, you go and hug one, take a picture with one, and have some fun. So, but back to burro racing. So we race in Fairplay, Leadville, Buena Vista. That is called our Triple Crown races. So we've already had the Fairplay race, and we've already had the Leadville race, which was last weekend. And then this weekend is the Buena Vista Pack Burro race. And I have the honor of being the owner of that race. And we have a lot of fun there. It's the third leg. It's a 13.1 mile race, and it is a sprint. We do a lot of running down old railroad beds, and it's flat. Where the last two races, they climbed up to Mosquito Pass. So in Fairplay, you go up one side and come back down to the town of Fairplay. And on the Leadville, which is the second leg of the Triple Crown, you go up to the Mosquito Pass and you come back down to Leadville. And the Fairplay is 29 miles. Leadville is 21 miles. And so it's a lot to process to manage a donkey for 29 miles on a pack burro race. And we can get into the details of that here in just a little bit. But so we we've had the honor of being able to be entrusted with these critters. With Redonkulous Ranch, we don't buy donkeys. They are given to us, and as I told you earlier, we make sure that they have good, productive lives. One of the other things that we do with our burros is we have our for-profit. It's called beverageburro.com. We take donkeys to weddings. We're professional wedding crashers. My wife's side gig has turned into almost 160 weddings a year. We are so busy, we can't see straight. And I don't even know how many weddings she turns down. We do corporate events. What we do is we put the panniers and we have baskets and LED lights and flowers, and we could put top hats on them and cufflinks and bow ties and cowboy hats, you name it. We can put it on the burro. And we do what I'm doing here today. We're standing there, we're talking to people, they're asking us questions, we're educating, because that is the basis of our mission. And all that money that comes in, it goes back to the donkeys. And they are able to create their own wealth. They do their own thing and pay their own medical bills, which you can't really say that for a horse. They have no idea they're not paying their own medical bills. And so it's really, really cool to watch the platform we've built for these donkeys and to be a part of it. So do we have any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Is there some organization that we can send donations?
Yes, ma'am. You can go to redonkulousranch.com. It's right here. It's REDONK.
I learned to read every day.
Okay, you got it? So their question was, is there a place where you can send donations? And it's just right there at redonkulousranch.com. You'll also see on there, Amber was recently in a reality show, and they came out, so we have a little short video, a little 20-minute video on there of them coming out. But we've been in movies this year. Last year we were at 2 film festivals. So that's been a lot of fun and very, very different. I had no idea. But apparently they love seeing these critters on film. So we'll see how all that unfolds as we started getting more and more connected with the Hollywood side of Colorado. There is a huge footprint here in Colorado for Hollywood. They mostly film in Durango, different areas, but they're slowly coming to the central part of Colorado. Any other questions? Yes.
What's the difference between a donkey and a mule?
Excellent. So the question is what is the difference between a donkey and a mule? A mule is half-ass. It's half horse and half donkey. A donkey and burro are the same thing. It's just burro is Spanish. Donkey is, it's more logistical as to where you are, as to what you say. And around us, it doesn't matter. We're kind of a hodgepodge anyway. So there are 3 different sizes of donkeys. We have minis, which are under 3 feet. We have standards, which are between 3 feet and 48 inches. And then anything above 48 inches is considered a mammoth. Now, the mammoths have a unique history. They were a gift from the King of England to George Washington. Now, he sent 4 mammoth donkeys over from England, and only 2 made it. Out of that 2, we actually have a huge population of mammoth donkeys. So George Washington, being the farmer, the crop grower he figured out amongst all the other things he was doing how to raise those donkeys, multiply those donkeys, and get the bloodline working here. And so there's probably well over 5,000 mammoth donkeys here in the United States. So if you ever go to, who's been to the National Western Stock Show here in Colorado? A handful of you. So we have this huge farm show in Denver, and we bring classes of animals. You'll see hitching, Clydesdales, you'll see sheep, cattle. It's pretty amazing. We also have a burro class, and so we take these donkeys and we show, and so it's really competitive, and it's kind of like ballet. It's judged. So you gotta know the judges, you gotta know what's going on. It's very, we call it, insider. You gotta know who's who. And it's a lot of fun. In 2011, that's what I'm wearing today. We won Best Ass in the Nation. And so I don't ever wear any other belt buckle. It's pretty cool. So it was a lot of fun. Any other questions?
What happens if the donkey be in need of being rescued?
So what happens to for a donkey to be in need of rescue? Well, let's say you've been ranching for 15 years. And all of a sudden you had a stroke. Something happened, and you're, needing someone to take care of your critters because your life isn't what it was yesterday. So that's probably the number one thing. It's health conditions. People's lives change rapidly. Car wrecks, you name it. We do jump in front of animal control, you know, and instead of seizing the animal, we'll do our best to work with them in place, whether that's educating the owners, coming in, buying hay, whatever. Money's no object. We want good health care, good teeth, good feet, good healthy animals, and happy communities, you know. But people can get complacent, and it can get a little scary out there. It's no different than the dog and the cat world, you know, with people. They could have too many and then maybe not take good as care of them as they should. So they sometimes get a little wake-up call, and we come out and we educate and make sure that these folks are doing the best they can for one of the greatest critters ever to live. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an opportunity ever to breed them? Like if you get a tap male and a female?
So do we have opportunity to breed? Now, us personally, it's not in our mission plan to breed. We have rescued donkeys that were pregnant and have had babies from that process. But there are several people out there that do breeding. I'm not against it, because when you have a really great structure, a great animal, good bones, you know, and they carry themselves like this guy here with the saddle on, that's got his butt pointed at me right over here. His name is Cheeto. He lived on 1.5 million acres. Okay, now Cheeto is he's a world champion, and so is Amber Wann, by the way. She's also a world champion. In 2020, they won their world championship title during COVID. And so Cheeto here is a unique specimen. I mean, his body conformation, his knees, his heart to body ratio is phenomenal. He's not super, super big, but he is stout. And so he's got the orange halter on. And he is just aware. He's got great eyesight. And that donkey's going to live to be about 35 or 40 years old because of his conformation, how he's built, and how fast he recovers from hard workouts. This is a burro that was designed to move. If we could breed him, we would. But he's been fixed, so he is not breeding anyone.
How old is he?
Cheeto is, I think he is 11 now. It's 11 or 12 now. So burros do live to be about between 30 to 40 years old. Yes, ma'am.
As a rescue, do you ever rehome a burro?
So, as a rescue, do we ever rehome a burro? The answer is yes, but we also have an operation. And the burros also have to take care of their own property, their own trucks, their own trailers, their own tires. You know, they got to buy their winter hay. And if we get a productive donkey that fits our needs, we're probably going to hang on to that donkey. Now, if we find the right person, absolutely, we will connect them. During 2020, one of our prize donkeys, Yukon was raised with zebras, or a zebra, really fast donkeys. And in burro racing, I mean, when I say fast, these donkeys are running. They're starting their race at sub 5-minute miles at the start of a race. So it is blazing speed heading out of town. Then they all get out of town when no one can see them. They're like, oh man, that was fast. You know, because they want to show off with the cameras. But when the season was over, Yukon won the world championship. He ended up winning a total of 6 races that year. We were so proud of the runner, Bob Sweeney, who took care of him, brought him in. And when we ask people to train, there's different levels. Sometimes you can just rent turnkey. We'll have the animal saddled, ready for you to go. Then there's the other people that say, hey, I've got 30 acres. I'm going to bring him home, and I'm going to train with him on my schedule. And those, we love both pairs. Okay, Bob was the I'm bringing him home guy. And when that season was over, we gave him to him. I mean, this is about a $10,000 donkey. We just gave him away. And so he is well known. He is a very, very well scored donkey. He's been in the stock show. Now, a story about Yukon is he was a ½ inch too short to be in the stock show, so we put shoes on him and leather shoes to get him in the stock show so that he could get his own belt buckle. So it did finally happen, but he did get DQ'd his first year at the National Western Stock Show. As I said, it's a big deal for us donkey people. One of the largest shows we have next to Bishop Mule Days over in California. So.
Brad, didn't you say last year something about their loyalty? I forget how.
So a donkey is extremely loyal. They are one of these animals that once you build a bond like a dog, this is my only comparison between a dog and a burro, is that they are extremely loyal. They actually look out for you. So when I say you're going camping, leave your dog at home and take your donkey, because your dog will just fight if there's something coming to your camp. A burro makes a choice whether to run or fight. Okay, and so if you look out at your donkey, you'll know what you'll need to do. But they will absolutely pair with you. The miners loved them. They just became family, and they lived so long, twice as long as a dog, and did 10 times more work than a dog. And so the miners loved them. Does anyone here know what a Colorado canary is? Yeah, it's an odd story. Not a lot of people get to hear it. So the men would have mines, and they would pass away. And when they would pass away, they would pass their mine down in an inheritance. Sometimes the wives got it, the sisters, a cousin, something like that. If the women inherited it, they didn't want to go down in the mines carrying all the gear. Okay, so they would take small statured burros, and they would put their mining gear on it and all the stuff for the day, and then that gear in their lead rope, and then they would tie the rope around their waist. Well, they would carry a canary. Does anyone know why we carry canaries down in the mine? Yes. That's right. So you can't smell the gas. Our gas that we have now, we put like a smell in it so that we can smell it. It smells like rotten eggs. You can't smell it. So if you're down in the hole, you're 50 feet down, you hit a vein of gas, it's over. So you take a canary with you, and the canary stops chirping. Now you know you've been in the hole too long, you better get out. The problem is by the time you smelled it, by the time the bird stopped chirping, it was probably too late. So when the women started going down in the mines using the burros to carry their gear, there's no place to tie the donkey. So they would just put a long rope, tie it around their waist, and get to work. And if they hit gas, the canary stopped chirping. They're on their way out. If they fell out, if they passed out or became unconscious, the burro would just drag their limp body out to safety. And they got called the Colorado canary because these little guys are strong. Even the ones that are 300 pounds can carry a 300-pound person out. They can drag a body out. And they were saving lives. People were no longer losing their life to gas because of the donkey. And so they eventually quit taking their bird and started just taking their donkeys down in the hole. So that's another really great true story on the backs of burros that's in that book. That's really, really cool. So, yes, sir.
Why do donkeys, or are they able to smell the gas?
So donkeys can sense it. They can smell it. So donkeys have a really huge innate sense of sensing things like water, thunderstorms, tornadoes, things like that. Donkeys will, way before a storm comes, will just turn their butt pointed at the wind, and you're just like, what's going on? And they'll just like, wait, it's coming. and they have an ability to know that something's on its way. Okay, definitely it's smell for them in the gas world. It's a lot of it sensing like water. So in the desert, there's a YouTube site that has the Department of Interior, which is BLM and National Forest, and the YouTube site shows this dozen donkeys digging this giant hole out in the middle of the desert. Now that's pretty impressive, right? These donkeys already have about a 15-foot hole dug. All right, and then the sun goes down, and as the sun goes down, the camera goes into night mode. Now what's impressive at this point is if you look along the horizon, it's all these eyeballs waiting on the donkeys to finish digging the hole to bring the water out of the ground. So in the morning when the light comes up and they fast forward the reel, the light comes up, the water's full to the top, there's not an animal in sight, and every critter in the region was taken care of by a dozen donkeys. And they just sensed that the water was under the ground. And so burros are not stubborn. That is a mislabel. When we see articles written, the stubborn donkey, they're cautious. And once you understand that, it's a lot easier to make them think it's their idea. Trying to broker a deal with a burro is something that a lot of humans can't do. So we do team building all the time. It's a lot of fun. We get like Whole Foods Market or Home Depot or something will call us, hey, we're going to bring 40 people out, you know, and what can you guys do for us? And we're like, well, we'll do a team building event. The burro will be the customer, and the employees will have to negotiate with the customer to make them think it's their idea through obstacle courses. So we'll have them cross water and jump over things and hop in and out of trailers and just do all kinds of different things that the burros aren't normally known for being wanting to do. And like water, for instance, burros are colorblind. They see black and white and shades of gray. So when they look at water or they go on this deck, they see the wood and then they see the shadow. That doesn't look like it does for us, for a donkey. So they have to trust us. So what I would do is I would walk into the shadow first. And once the donkey saw me do that, and if I built the trust with the burro, then they would just follow me through. Same with water. They can't see through it. They can see on top of it, but they can't see through it. Okay, so they don't quite know what it is. It's not sitting still, it's moving. And so it just takes them a while to just say, oh, I know that's water. I know what that is. You know, so if you take a stalled donkey or what we call a donkey that comes from a pen system or something like that and never lived out in the wild, they won't cross water because they've never had to cross water their whole lives. You know, and so it just takes the older donkeys, we bring them out, and when we do training, we take the more seasoned burros, put them in front of them. The seasoned burros do it, and the little younger ones go right through behind them, and that makes our training easy. So, more questions? Yes, sir.
Are they known for any particular sense? Which sense is their probably number one? Do they hear well? Do they see well? Do they smell well? And you know about birds and owls and creatures, they all have their real sense.
I think their biggest sense is hearing. Okay. I really do. I mean, their eyesight is exceptional, but I really think that their ability to hear things is pretty amazing. And you just watch their ears go to work. It's like little radar, you know, satellite dishes going looking for the next thing coming at them. But you know, it's absolutely amazing to take these guys camping. They just did a little run today, just 5 or 6 of them today. They went up and ran a handful of miles and came back. And the process to make a burro do something like that, it's really, really unique. And so it takes practice for us humans. You know, it's kind of like taking a 4-year-old to a mall. You know, they want to go into every store. Oh, there's a driveway. You know, they're constantly trying to do something different, and that what you want to do that day necessarily doesn't mean that that's what they want to do that day. So there are times where you may want to pack a lunch because it could be a long day. So you want to make sure that you're patient and that you are 100% ready to be with the burro and be part of their herd. And that's the cool part about pack burro racing and the sport that we love here in Colorado, is that we're able to just spend time with these animals in their environment and do something that they naturally do, and that's haul ass. They skedaddle pretty fast. It's crazy. We run up a hill, up a mountain on your own is not something anyone here enjoys. Okay, we do it, stay healthy, you know, to stay alive and stay youthful. But with a burro, we get them out front, we take the rope, we run it under our butts, and we bring it together, and we fall behind them. And then we get them going. Now, we call that the burro escalator. So what they do is they're pulling us up the hill. Okay, so we'll hold onto the saddle, all our body weight's on their chest. So they're pulling us up the hill. And the faster runners are doing this stuff at like 7.5, 8-minute miles, straight up Mosquito Pass, on ground that Jeeps are having a problem driving on. And they're hanging on and they're clearing distances. I mean, the record for fair play 29 miles is 3 hours and 46 minutes with a donkey named Maynard and Tom Sobel, who just got inducted into the Running Hall of Fame just about 2 years ago in 2022. So being able to be in that process, in that moment, that is the cool part. That's the moment when you are able to broker the deal and get that donkey to fly up a mountain and have some fun. So, any more questions?
What has the growth been in terms of, you know, you told us 1951 started, like, are there 4,000?
Sure.
What's the number of people?
So in 1940, so the question is what is the growth of the sport? So in 1949, the last Sunday in July, Fairplay, Colorado, there were 21 runners that signed up to run that race. We now have running at around 97. We have not broke 100 yet in a single race. I mean, it's a lot to get 100 animals anywhere. So, and 100 trained animals is the other obstacle, and then training the humans and the runners. So our sport is growing healthy. It's not a fast grow. There's no bubble. These are people, we're watching people own donkeys and come in, they train, they sell their house in Highlands Ranch, and then they go out and buy a ranch. And then they're able to, you know, start their own story and their own legacy. And, you know, now they're getting BLM donkeys, which is Bureau of Land Management. They have a burro rehoming program. 1971 Wild Horse and Burro Act. It's a really unique story in Vietnam in 1971. It's the tail end of the war. A secret got out that the military was using helicopters and they were sniping donkeys to practice for wartime. And that got out, and we're talking about, I have never seen, when you read the story, Congress acted in 3 weeks from start to finish. The 1971 Wild Horse and Burro Act happened so fast, I don't know of another piece of legislation that turned and burned as fast as that one did. So the wild horses and the wild burros are all protected species in America. And so the government takes it very seriously. They herd them in. You've heard of these BLM camps where they bring them in. They have the prisoners work with the animals, and they train them. They make them halter broke, where they hop in trailers and do neat stuff. And then you can go up and buy a donkey, $80, what we call a newbie, you know. But these donkeys are usually brought in from the wild. We still have wild donkeys here in Colorado. They're all over our Rocky Mountains. Good luck finding them. They're pretty much camouflaged. They're pretty hard to spot out in the wilderness. So they're not hopping around like deer. So any other questions?
Have you ever read the book Running with Sherman?
I have read the book.
What do you think of that?
So we're in it. And my son Benjamin here is one of the characters with the blue hat on. So that's Benjamin Wann down there with the red shirt.
Right.
So Running with Sherman, Christopher McDougall came out for a couple of years. He had just finished writing Born to Run, which is about barefoot running. Now, Christopher McDougall is a New York Times columnist, and he ventured into writing books, and so he's written 3 so far. I know he's working on his 4th one right now, but he always likes to write about body parts. And so when you read Born to Run, you get this great story about Colorado and northern Mexico and New Mexico and the Tarahumara Indians and all the stuff. And it is a very interesting story about shoes and feet and what we've done to ourselves wearing shoes and how we should get back to being grounded and not wearing shoes and working on our arches. And it is an amazing, inspiring story about feet that you would never dream of. So that's Born to Run. His next book is about natural born heroes, and it's about the body fascia. Now that's a muscle that a lot of people don't know about. It goes from your head all the way down to your toes. It's a muscle that surrounds your skeletal, you know, your whole muscle system, your whole body, and it's how Bruce Lee, one of the most famous martial artists, with a 1-inch punch can move a 225-pound man 13 feet backwards. So you wonder how that happens. How can a lady pick up a car because her baby's under it? It's the body fascia. It's the strongest muscle in our body, and we just don't know how to tap into it. And he talks about an entire tribe on the island of Crete, and they were the first to defeat the Germans whenever they started attacking different countries, and they started branching out. They with pitchforks, as they were parachuting in, were killing the Germans, taking their guns, and defeated them. The Germans never took over the island of Crete. And that island, it's all about running along cliffs and living on the edge of, big cliff dwellings. And the body fascia in that book is another amazing, inspiring story. The 3rd book he wrote was about mental health. It's about the brain. And he wrote Running with Sherman. He interviewed us for, 2 summers. He'd come out and chit chat with us and talk. We built a great relationship with him, and so he decided to put us in the book. My son Benjamin has epilepsy, and our story behind that is we were told by our doctors he could no longer use the pharmaceuticals, and good luck. So we turned to cannabis, and we were not pro-cannabis. We didn't know anything. We were nothing. We didn't know anything about it. It just was never in our lives. So we had to figure it all out. We were able to pass laws, and we were able to get an understanding. But my son, once he started on CBD oil first, and the CBD oil made him seizure-free right away. And then we learned more about THC, the different products that were out there, the different growers. We started, his rescue medication is a THC, it's a nasal spray, so you can stop a seizure in 20 minutes. So we're like, well, why shouldn't his rescue medication be in school where he spends the most time? And the state was like, well, it's federally legal, we get federal funding. And so I tore the Department of Justice in half, trying to explain to them they have no purview over us. Did you know they cannot come to our town and arrest anyone without talking to your sheriff first? We found out that there were so many things we were told that federal law trumps state law. It's not true. We've got letters from the Department of Justice, Department of Education, Department of Interior, you name it. We have letters explaining how sovereign each state in the United States is. So with all this knowledge, we were able to go to the Capitol here in Colorado, and we put cannabis in 174 school districts across Colorado. So that's why McDougall put us in Born to Run, is because, and he has a little chapter called the Army of Wann, and that's what we do, is we put together the facts and what are the rules and how do you win. And that's what we did. And so we were able to save thousands of lives, kids with Crohn's disease, children with head injuries. Anyone who's trying to get off of pharmaceuticals can turn to a CBD or a THC and they can get the proper help. It's not about getting high, it's about getting help. We now want to start seeing it on ambulances, in nursing homes, and in places where it can really do some good. Those things are actually coming aboard a lot faster than we thought. So those are just going to happen naturally because it's the next medication that's going to take over and try to help. It doesn't help everyone, but the people it does help, it's pretty amazing. So Running with Sherman is a great book. A couple other characters in there. It's a really interesting book to get tied into. I do recommend you get the audiobook because he reads it himself and it's a lot of fun to listen to. So, more questions?
Do they ever ride the burros during the races?
All right, the question is do you ever ride the burros during the races? That is the number one rule, is no riding. So we as athletes, we would never ask a donkey to do anything we're not willing to do ourselves. And so if we're going to go 29 miles, I'm running 29 miles. So that's, yeah, here it comes. So that's a great question. It's always about trying to be as humane as possible, in the process. I mean, without a doubt, that's our true goal. But a burro is a work animal, and it loves to move. And if you don't use it, the donkey won't live as long. It's proven. I mean, these animals will, if they sit in pens, they'll be lucky to make 15 years. And they'll more than likely die of the same things we would die of if we sat on the couch for 15 years. And so it'd be heart problems, it would be blood vessels, it would be, ankles and joints and arthritis and inflammation. So the best thing you can do for an animal is to get it out and get it moving. So, more questions? Yes, ma'am. All right, say that one more time. What kind of science?
Yeah, well, part is art. So part is like something you get a feel for, which parts are like, yes, this is technique.
Yep, so we send every runner out with what we call a toolbox of things that they can do. Okay, and running is something where the number one rule is if whatever you're doing isn't working, stop doing it. Do something different. Make a different noise, maybe slap your own ass, do something different, and try to do your best to make the donkey move forward. And because that's what they truly want to do. And what can stall them out is if you stop and you're messing with your shoes all the time and you're messing in your bag or you're doing selfies along the course or something like that, yeah, you may have a donkey what we call shut down because they're like, well, he's not doing anything, I'm not going to do anything. And so the psyche and the drive behind getting a donkey going is a dance, and we call it brokering the deal. And that is where you just get in this little grooves, like, okay, so you're going to give me 100 yards. We're going to take that 100 yards as fast as you want to take it. And so you get behind that burro and you get that 100 yards knocked out. So they want to walk for 25 yards. Okay, we'll walk, but I'm going to ask you in 25 yards, we're going to ask to go again. Eventually they're going to stop walking. They're going to jog continuously, and you're going to broker that deal, and you're going to find out what this animal likes. Maybe they want you in front. Maybe they want you running beside them. Maybe they want you directly behind them. You know, and you're going to figure that out during that process. That's why we do training runs. That's why we, you know, gather. Let me shorten this up. You know, and we make sure that the runners have all the knowledge they can. Now, do I know all? I don't. I don't know everything about burros. I don't know everything to make them run, and I learn new stuff all the time on how to make a donkey go. So, like, I used to twirl my rope. And it just would twirl, and I thought that was good enough. But if you make it really long and you twirl it really fast, it makes a sound. And then they really go fast. So you learn new things all the time to motivate the animal. So, more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do donkeys have GI issues like horses do with colic and then founder and things like that?
Great question. Do donkeys have GI issues like colic or founder and things like? Absolutely. They can overeat. They can get fat necks. They can colic, which is a sand buildup in the gut that twists. It's not pleasant. It's something you never want to see, but it does happen in equine. It's probably one of the #1 cause of death for equine. I right now think cancer is catching up with that, and I'm really concerned. So I have letters in with the state vet. I want to know, when they tell us we have to have weed-free hay, what's causing it to be weed-free? And then what are my donkeys eating? And what are our $100,000 horses eating? You know, why are we feeding weed-free hay to these animals? Now, if they're eating a weed that's an invasive weed, you know, I understand that we need to get those out. But maybe we should have a program where we go and pull those out and not kill them with a product. And so cancer is catching up very, very quickly to that, and it's not good. And there's a lot of cancer going on in these animals, and they don't show a lot of sign of pain. Donkeys are so hardy, you really got to know them well to know that they're different, that something changed. So you call the vet and say, he's not eating like he was before. So all that stuff. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am. You want to hear more about the relationship between the donkeys and the personalities? Sure. So the burro is they're one of those lonesome critters that they are a herd animal. But once you remove them from the herd and you become the herd, that's the attachment that is unreplaceable. And it becomes a bond where can almost, they know what you're doing and you know what they're doing. And it's one of those things where once you've gotten to that level, it's really hard to even own horses anymore, because horses don't think like that at all. Mules don't think like donkeys, you know, even though they're half donkey, they just don't think about it or think the same way. It's a little hard to explain. It's an emotion that you have while you're with them. And it's something that if you've done something in life that very few have ever done, and you've watched it be successful, that it's a really unique feeling. Whether you're in archery or you plant flower beds and you grow the greatest rose of all time, it's one of those things where you just touched with nature, and there's a connection there that's pretty powerful. So, yes, ma'am.
Do donkeys have personality conflicts?
They do. Do donkeys have personality conflicts? Absolutely. There are some burros you wouldn't put with the herd. They're mean. They're bullies. So, well, you know, a lot of times with us, they're kittens, you know, but there's some donkeys that are like, you know, I'm going to hurt these animals, and get them to do what I want to do. So, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different personalities. There are no two donkeys alike. They all have the I can attitude. I've never really met a lazy donkey. You know, it's just convincing them it's their idea to do things. That's the hardest part. So
we always associate donkeys with carrying heavy loads. I mean, that's just a mindset, I think. And last year, I think you explained the weight limit that, I mean, they don't carry thousands of pounds.
Right. So for short distances, they can carry half their body weight.
Half their body weight.
So they can do that for about a mile to 2 miles. And so if you have a 500-pound donkey, that's actually a lot of load. That's a 250-pound load if you're just going distance. Now, if it's real hilly, real cliffy, you're going to have to cut that down some more. And if you're going to go further, and the ideal weight is a third of their body weight is ideal. Quarter is fast. You're going to move faster, you know, so you got to almost plan it like you're a truck driver and logistically plan your load as to where you're going and where you're heading. But the burro is not like a horse. A horse has withers. Withers is a bone that is right in their front. So if you take a look at Jethro, that really dark brown donkey, his back from his butt all the way to his front shoulders, it's relatively flat. In a horse, right there where his neck starts, over the top of his front legs will be an arch. That's called the wither. So if you put a saddle on a horse and the horse bends down to eat grass, that saddle's going to stay on. Okay? If you do that to a donkey and you put a saddle on a donkey, the saddle's going to come off. So that's why you see what we call a britchin. If you, the next donkey over, the green one, you'll see he has a leather system around his butt and he has a leather system around his chest. So that way when he's running uphill, the saddle doesn't fall off his ass. And if he's running downhill, the saddle stays and it doesn't crowd his front shoulders. And so he's not running his front shoulders on the wooden saddle, which does have pads and stuff, but still you want them comfortable when they're moving out and having fun. So that's a great question. Anybody else? Yes.
When you do the race, are they packing anything?
So we have to have, during the race, you have to have a pick, pan, and shovel. We used to have a weight requirement of 33 pounds. We decided during COVID that the weight wasn't necessary. You know, it just wasn't a good look for the sport. So we just got rid of the weight. 33 pounds included the saddle. So we didn't have to add much. We added like 5 or 6 pounds because by the time you put your saddle, your panniard, your pad together, you're probably at about 25 to 28 pounds. So you're already up there pretty good, just with the standard required equipment that you have. So, anybody else?
So is
Oh, we got a hand back here.
The donkeys have the same body language as a horse, like with flat ears, they get angry. Is the body language the same?
Are the body language on a horse and the burro the same? The answer is yes, but you're going to get 10 times more personality. So just think of the word sassy when you're thinking donkey, okay? Because they're going to tell you like a Latino would tell you. They're just going to tell you, and then they're not going to parse words. It's just going to come out. And a horse may be a little more hesitant to tell you, but a donkey will tell you right away when there's something either they love or they don't like so much, or they're scared of, or they're sad. We always say it's hard to actually really hurt a donkey, because they're so tough. The strongest bone in the world is the jawbone of an ass. And the reason they're built like that is because they can kick each other. Now, you don't want a fragile donkey when you can kick it 1,500 pounds per square inch. That's enough to crush a bear skull. And that's why they're the great defenders. That's why they're used as guard animals, because their bite is at 2,500 pounds. So that means they can take an arm. They mean they're that strong, and they can open their mouth up to a foot wide. So they can get a lot in there, and if they can get it open, they can clamp it down. And so we tell people all the time, whatever you ate last is what your fingers are. So if you just had a croissant, that's what your fingers are. So you want to make sure that any animals you're around, whether it's a dog, a horse, a burro, you want to make sure whatever you ate last, that that's what your fingers are. So that's one of the things you should think about. Yep, any others? Yes, ma'am.
So the tools you said everybody has to carry, are those for historic reasons or is it useful during the race?
Yeah, it's a mining sport, and so it is a historic reason. The question is the tools that we carry during the race, is that, what is the purpose behind it, the meaning? And it is part of the historic, the original, let's say the folklore of the sport was, there were two drunks in a bar and the guy says, my ass is faster than your ass, and so they drew a line in the street and slapped leather out of town to see whose donkey was the fastest, and then the sport grew from there. So that was the story of the legend, and eventually it became a mining sport, and Fairplay started that and gave it some structure and some guide rails and added some tools to it. But yeah, there were burro races. I was just watching Grizzly Adams. Who knows who Grizzly Adams is? Long, old show who's been around forever. And inside there, I think it was like his 4th or 5th season, it's called the Great Burro Race in that old show. And Grizzly Adams is literally racing a donkey against his buddies. There's 3 of them in the race, and it's hilarious. It's a great show. I like it so much, I bought the script. So I'm a historian. I collect stuff. Probably drives my wife nuts. Between her Amazon packages and the stuff I get from eBay, it's insane around our house. So the gear is important. The symbolizing is important because we want to make sure we spread the history as much as we can. Any other questions?
Well, you did say that they inject really hard.
Yes.
But, so why are we so comfortable around them?
Right.
And kids?
Well, because we trust them. We've been around. If we had a donkey that we didn't trust, we'd tie a red ribbon to their tail. You know, we'd let people know. Or more than likely, they wouldn't come out to a crowd like this. Now they might go to a parade, and we may take them to a Murdoch's, you know, a feed store or something like that. But not necessarily in an environment where they can have free reign. I mean, these burros, we could have a car out here backfire, they'd probably scatter. You know, they would probably have that self-defense mechanism. I tell people all the time that the burros have a really great self-preservation, and that makes them pretty cool. Is to, oh yeah, we're almost done. That it's part of their. It's not that they're stubborn. It's that self-preservation that keeps them safe all the time. I'm watching this dog, making sure he doesn't get under a burro. So anything below their belly on a burro, they think it's a wolf, fox, coyote. It becomes something. That's why the little kids are the ones we always really, really watch more than anything, even with our trusted donkeys. But it's more of a just, we want to make sure everybody walks away safe.
Is there a predator of the burros? Is there some bear? Is there anything that the burros?
Yeah, right now, well, it's wolves.
Wolves?
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with here in Colorado now, and wolves are, you know, they are the main apex that takes them out, you know, because they pack in herds, you know, and they get in these big herds. But donkeys do too, so, you know, I'm sure it's, you know, gunfight at the OK Corral when those two get together, because the donkey's not going to put up with it, and they're not going to go down, you know, without a fight. So burros, I've seen them fight. I've seen 2 males go at it, 2 intact males. It's like watching Jurassic Park. It's crazy. 2 T-Rexes, lots of noises and lots of teeth. So pretty amazing. Anything else? All right, folks. Well, we're about at the hour point. We want to thank everyone for coming out, and we really, really want to thank the museum for having us and bringing us out. Want to thank all the burros for being here today and the runners. And thank you again for coming out, and have a great evening. All right. Come on over and take some photos.
That was really good.
Thank you. Get all these mics off.
So you're not gonna speak on the 10th Mountain Division?
On the 10th,
Yeah, that
we
was,
could talk about donkeys and military.
well,
Thank you very much for coming out.